And, it was all of a sudden like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and started realizing I think I'm spending the night. So I stripped down a whole tree, got all my, got some pine boughs and stuff like that, dug a hole. I don't know what I was just trying to keep warm, dug a deep hole, stuck the boughs in there. And I actually crawled in the hole. I was just so cold, put that blanket over me and tried, I was thinking, maybe I can just like catch a nap or something, which was probably not a good idea, but laid down in that hole for about 20 minutes. And then, that same voice was like, you better get out of the hole. You're going to die in there.
One of the most common pieces of advice that people give to backcountry travelers is to always have a partner, to never go alone. But there is something powerful about being in the mountains by yourself. Being on your own has a way of sharpening your senses. You will hear and see things that you might miss when you are in a group. Going solo can offer time and space to hear yourself think. And let's be honest, silence is a rare commodity in a world filled with so much noise. When you are by yourself, you can go as fast or as slow as you want, and you can eat all the best snacks. Every decision is yours. Which makes things dicey, no doubt about it. There's no one else to figure out whether you should punch the gut or just go around. No one to help you safely navigate that sketchy traverse. No friend to have eyes on you as you take that one crucial step and then give you a high five on the other side. That self-reliance and independence can be exhilarating. It is also dangerous because the consequences of making a poor decision are that much more severe. Welcome back to The Fine Line. This is our Season 9 finale. I'm Matt Hansen. Our story takes place on a bright sunny day, March 8th, 2025. That's when Jason Dunlop, a father of 3 who has lived in Jackson for about 30 years, set out into the Togety Pass trail system on his Polaris RMK 800 snowmobile. He started at the trailhead near the Hatchet Resort, just off of Highway 287. He was by himself, which was not that unusual. He's been going on solo missions deep into the backcountry for about 15 years. But on this day, what started out casually ended up being an epic. The lessons he learned went straight to the heart of what it means to be a soloist in a vast backcountry area with complex terrain and serious communication challenges. It also taught the volunteers at Teton County Search and Rescue a few lessons of their own. Sometimes it is tempting to take for granted how easy it appears for the SAR team to come get you and yank you out of the woods. But it is never easy, even when it looks like it should be a slam dunk. Our story about the soloist begins right after this break. The Fine Line is produced by Backcountry Zero, an initiative that was started by the Teton County Search and Rescue Foundation in 2016 in order to provide education and outreach to help prevent accidents in the Jackson Hole backcountry. Thank you for being with us on this journey.
This episode of The Fine Line is sponsored by Arc'teryx, a global design company based in the Coast Mountains of British Columbia, specializing in technical, high-performance apparel, outerwear, and equipment. For over 35 years, Arc'teryx has built trusted systems for points of critical need, inspired by athletes who are pushing the limits of possibility in alpine environments. Woven into the DNA of everything Arc'teryx makes are years of lessons from the mountains, trusted by mountain athletes and worn when it counts. Everything Arc'teryx does starts with a simple belief: the mountains make us better. Learn more at arcteryx.com.
There's this old, I can't remember the name of the book. It's an avalanche kind of guidebook. And they had some statistics in there. And this is probably surprising to everybody, but the majority of fatalities in avalanche is obviously men, right? We're super smart, right? But I was really impressed to see that there's a percentage, a high percentage, or at least a significant percentage of those fatalities that's not just like the newbie, but it's usually an experienced older male who got complacent. And I think that's what really hit me about this whole experience. And I think I had to learn this lesson is that, yeah, I know the right things to do, and I've got the time back there, and probably have the skills, I guess, if I can say that without sounding too heady, but I disregarded a lot of those things because I kept making decisions during that day that I would never made before when I'm out there by myself, but I was getting away with it. You know, it was a go anywhere day, and I got somebody else unstuck. So man, you know, hero moment. And I saw, as I look back on that, I kept making decisions that I hadn't made before. I was getting complacent, a little cocky, and I got bit. And my lesson is I can't get there again. Can't let that happen again. I'm Jason Dunlop. I live here in Jackson over in Indian Trails, and I've been here in the Valley almost 30 years. I have 3 kids. They're all grown up, Katie, Hannah, and Max. Max was on the Venture program with Search and Rescue while he was in high school. And I actually have 2 grandchildren, if you can believe that. I don't look like that, but Henry and Tatum. So yeah, and I've worked in construction here in Jackson for a long time, but in the last couple of years, I've started getting involved with a company I own called Studio MX. We do 3D modeling of construction projects, and I also have another company where I do consulting for legal cases that are involving construction cases, mostly here in the western states. I rode my first snow machine when I was 12, which was about 40 years ago. It hurts to say that out loud. And just kind of been on and off when I was younger. But yeah, since I moved up here for the last 30 years, we ride quite a bit. When I'm with the family, we're pretty chill, but I like to go out with some friends, and it gets a little rowdy every once in a while. But as we're going to find out today, I go by myself probably more than anything, which I'm sure is going to be something worth talking about. I think I've been riding by myself. It actually started there was a YSAW, I can't even remember how long ago, and there was a guy there who was talking about, people being able to go out and measure stone depths. I don't know if you guys remember that. I don't know why it kind of got to me. I was like, that sounds like fun. And so it was kind of, I'm using it a little bit as an excuse to go and ride by myself. And so I first started doing it. And I also wanted to see kind of every square mile I could up at Togety. There's so much terrain up there, and it's hard to coordinate with friends sometimes. You know, it's like, hey, let's go Friday, and I got to work. And so, I just started ending up going by myself and figured if I'm out poking holes in the snow and measuring and uploading to these databases, there was a little bit of I guess I'll say justification for it, even though that's not really the right thing to do. But I started going out and have like GPS locations where I'd go measure the snow depths and put it in this little app. And then when I get cell service again, it uploads, and I guess it goes to the University of Alaska, and they get to decide, are we good snowpack, not good snowpack. So I've been doing that for about, I would say, 15 years.
It's probably fair to say that snow depths are just one of the things that people get excited about on Togety Pass. As part of the Continental Divide Trail System, Togety offers 118 miles of trails on some of the best high-elevation riding in the West. In most winters, snow depths typically range from 6 to 10 feet. Many of the trails are groomed and have names like the CDT and the CDA and the W and E and the K. Many snowmobilers use these trails to access terrain that features deep powder, cross-country riding, and an infinite number of creek drainages. It is exceptionally remote, especially in winter, with little to no cell service.
Normally, I go through my pack pretty good and make sure. I mean, I've always kind of prepped and saying, if something happens, I want to be ready and not be a fool. And, at least if something goes down, I want to be prepared so I can take care of myself as long as I need to. And so I usually will go through and make sure I've got water and food. And do I have fire? Do I have like a blanket or something do I have some way to communicate? Does my wife know where I'm going to go? Does she know where I'm going to park? All those things. That's my normal practice. And then when I'm out there, I mean, when you're by yourself, you ride a little bit different. I don't know if you guys would agree with that. They're nodding, but you kind of ride a little more conservative. And I've always told my friends when I get back to the truck, I feel like I got away with highway robbery, kind of. You feel like you got away with something. At least you played your cards right. And so it's a little extra prep. When I go with my friends, you're kind of like, do I have gas? I don't know. Do I have my gloves? Yeah, I think I'm okay. But you're a little bit more lax when you're going with a bunch of other people.
In 2023, Jason broke his leg in a motorcycle accident. putting him out of commission for most of that winter. After he recovered, he got a wild idea to race in the Baja 1000, known as the toughest off-road race in the world. But during the pre-run, he broke some ribs and had a few other injuries, putting another damper on his upcoming winter sledding habit. But in March of 2025, he started getting out, firing up his sled and heading out into some of his favorite areas on Togati Pass.
Winter hit, and I kind of took a break and decided early in the season start riding again just a little bit. So it wasn't a lot of rides, but I'd ridden the week before March 8th and just went out by myself, kept it chill, couple hours, no big deal, came home. It was a beautiful day, blue sky and stuff. So I left the house, got up to Hatchet about 11 in the morning, threw the lunch in the bag, grabbed my backpack and took off and kind of headed up that little CDA trail, the little cutoff trail above the ranger station there, and decided I was going to go measure some snow down that W portion towards Leidy. So I got down there, beautiful. And it had also snowed the night before. I think it was kind of some weird, like 3 or 4 inches. And so you knew where nobody had been because there was no tracks and nobody had been down south of W. But right when I started down there, it was funny. There was 2 guys in their rental onesies and a sled was upside down. The other guy was stuck trying to help him. So I spent about 20 minutes helping those guys get unstuck. I just kept going down W and grabbed some lunch, sat there, enjoyed the sun, and thought, well, I'm going to go poke a little further east. I haven't measured over there in a while. Headed down K and then, what is it, Kettle? I think it's Kettle Creek, that little cutoff that takes you to the south. And then went up there and it was beautiful. And there's no tracks and just enjoying the day. And it was one of those days where you could go anywhere, right? And so I decided, well, I'm going to poke over the top from Kettle into Cottonwood Creek. And there's a little pinch point. I don't know if you guys have been through there. There's like this narrow band of trees and it had blown through. It was about 5 or 6 feet deep. I got my shovel out, dug it out. You know, I was like being a good citizen, just having a day. And by this time it was about getting to where it was probably 2:30 when I dropped into Sochair and then into Cottonwood Creek. And I was kind of thinking it's time to head home. But I wonder, when I got to the intersection of Cottonwood Creek and Sochair, I wonder if I can just go left instead of going back down and all the way around and kind of catch the E-trail. So I started following a couple tracks and, crossed the creek once and I had to kind of jump and go through it. And I think you guys probably ran into my tracks and were like, we don't want to go that way. And anyways, so I got into a little tight spot in the trees and I came to this snow bridge and there were tracks across it. So I punched over it and kind of, it was one of those moments where you're like, ooh, I'm glad I made it across that. And then I went another about 100 feet up through the trees and there was another crossing. And this is when I realized the tracks I was following were going the opposite way. They were coming down Cottonwood Creek and I was going up because I got to a spot where there was the creek and then it was about a 4 or 5 foot bank on the other side and I could see that somebody had jumped off it. And so I realized this is kind of the end of my road, but I got my shovel out and thought, well, maybe I'll just dig a ramp into the creek and then I crossed the creek and dug a ramp to the other side. Got that done. I even took a picture of it. It was 310 because I was so proud of my ramp. I thought this is going to be great. And when I got back to the sled, I started it. And you guys have probably all had this where that voice just says, go the other way. Don't do this. And I'm old enough to know to listen to that voice. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to go back the way I was, turn around, went back down the trail I was headed to, got to that snow bridge, but I'm coming at it from sort of a 90-degree angle. And I just hesitated for 1 second and like, oh, I don't know if I like this angle, but I've got enough momentum. I was still going. The right ski hit the snow bridge as I was kind of like turning the sled. And as soon as I gave it the gas to cross, I just felt the whole thing break. And next thing I know, I'm sitting in the creek and my sled is upside down and it's now starting to like go underneath the snow bridge from the water pressure. And I don't know why my reaction was just to sit there and I laughed for a second. And I just said out loud, I am screwed. I mean, those words that came out of my mouth because I didn't think there was any way I was going to pull that out on my own. But I panicked real quickly and said, I'm just going to like start yanking and exerting effort and all this stuff. And I stripped my coat off and took my backpack off, and I was just in a sweater and started falling trees to use as levers. And it took me a while to realize that there was no way out of there by myself. I got a new phone that week, and I had apps that had not downloaded, one of which was my InReach, my Garmin app. And I opened my phone and looked down and realized, oh, I'm double screwed here. I can't really communicate with anybody. That was the moment I realized, oh, my phone has satellite.
One of the most interesting developments in backcountry communication is the ability of newer Apple iPhones to have emergency satellite texting. This feature can be extremely helpful, but it also has some bugs and features that aren't exactly intuitive. Many people probably don't even know that they have it. And so just like any other device, you need to know how it works before the chaos of an emergency sets in. The most important thing to remember is that if you are trying to text someone via satellite on your iPhone, is you have to initiate the text. So this means that someone at home or at a SAR command center can't just text you out of the blue. You have to start the communication in order for them to respond. And so as Jason was trying to sort out his problem, he noticed on the top right corner of his iPhone screen a little SOS satellite icon.
So I opened it up, got a signal, which is a trick. I mean, I think people need to know it just doesn't work that way. It's not like you open it up and it's ready to go. I had to track the satellite, and I'm in a narrow canyon, track the satellite, then follow it with my phone. And I sent a text out to my wife that said, I'm sorry, I've messed up. I need help. Can you contact Brian Cook, who lives at Red Hills Ranch? Good friend of mine. And she said, yes. And she texted Brian Cook, and he's out racing in Nevada on motorbikes. So she said he's not available. And we went back and forth, and I said, let me work on it. So I worked on it for about 2 or 3 hours, just full like heart rate at 150, doing every single maneuver I could think of, leveraging with the logs, which, by the way, you don't just like tip those over. And I didn't have a saw. I had to dig down to the base about 4 or 5 feet and then shake the tree and tip them over. And I think when you guys showed up, it was looked like, Lincoln logs everywhere.
So you're trying to get your snowmobile up out of the creek?
Yeah, I was just trying to do anything to get it to where I could roll it, because it was almost windshield down, not quite, but it was getting pulled underneath by the water pressure. So I was just trying to stop it from completely rolling, and I could move it 4 or 5 feet one direction or the other, but I couldn't lift it up, and I couldn't get leverage on it either. So
how deep is the snowbanks, and then how deep's the water in the creek?
The creek wasn't that deep. It was maybe a foot, but it was enough that when I landed in it, I was wet from my shoulders down. And I took my jacket off and everything and I put it in the sun, because I was kind of thinking I might be here for a while, so I want to make sure I'm doing myself a favor and try to get things dry. The bank, I would say, it was probably from the top of the snow down, 5 feet? So yeah, I was just working on that and communicating with my wife and my daughter, Hannah. They were home. And I'm not sure which of them, my wife said, should we get search and rescue coming? And no offense, guys. I said, no, no, don't send those guys. I'll get this figured out, or somebody will come up here. And so she ended up contacting, somehow she got in touch with a good friend of mine, Ted Dawson and Nate Ward. And they were just gracious enough to say, yeah, I just got home from skiing or whatever. And they loaded up and they headed up to Hatchet to start where I did, which I think was a bad idea, because I was a long way from Hatchet. And this is probably, I don't know what time they ended up calling, but I never told them to. I hate to admit that. I think they just made the right decision. And so they reached out to search and rescue about the time I think Nate and Ted were leaving town. And from there, I got to be honest, I'm kind of lost. But I was just at that point still trying to wrestle that sled, knowing the sun was going to go down, and I didn't have a ton of time to get ready for really hunkering down for what I thought I might be through the night.
At this point, Jason is about 25 miles from where he started at the Hatchet, and he's about the same distance from the Atherton Trailhead on the Gros Ventre Road. This is important to know, considering what happens next. We'll pick that up after this short break.
I'm Maddie Johnson, the Preventative Search and Rescue Manager for the Teton County Search and Rescue Foundation. One of the things I love about my job is all the personal connections I get to make during our different Backcountry Zero workshops and events. By creating programs like mental health in the mountains, wilderness medicine for avalanche terrain, digital mapping and navigation, and the Wyoming Snow and Avalanche Workshop, we get to help thousands of people feel more prepared, safe, and empowered in the backcountry every year. And the best part is that these programs help support Teton County Search and Rescue volunteers by developing backcountry users who are committed to good decision-making out in the mountains. Check out our full list of programming at backcountryzero.com. I'm so excited to see you out there.
So when someone calls 911 and dispatch identifies that it's something in the backcountry, then they'll call search and rescue. My name is Doug Van Houten, and I live in Driggs, Idaho. I work for a financial software company, primarily working in healthcare supply chain, and married to my wife, Eva, going on 11 years now, and we have 4 cats and 2 dogs. I've been a volunteer for search and rescue, just started my 11th year of being a volunteer. And so I've got that a 911 call occurred at 5:43 p.m. on that Saturday. And immediately dispatch notified our SAR board. And so we have a group of, about 10 people that are on the team that get notified initially. And the goal of that first call is to determine, is it a search and rescue mission? Are we paging the team? How are we going to respond to it? And pretty quickly we identified that, yes, you needed help. And so from there, we started talking about tactics. How are we going to get you assistance? And at that point, we knew that your friends Ted and Nate were headed in to help. And myself and a friend of mine were up at Togety Mountain Lodge for the weekend. And so we were the closest people in proximity to where you were. And so we talked about it on that board call and just said, hey, I'm up here. I can help. What do you want to do? And from there, knowing that your friends were coming in, knowing that we were up there and we were going to be able to get there more quickly, we decided at that point not to page the whole team, which in retrospect may have been not the right choice at that time, which we'll talk about kind of some of the other things that happened. One of the first actions that we take once we realize we have a SAR mission is to make a map. And so we have a system that we can have a joint operating image of, where are the people at? Where did they start? Where are our teammates? And all of that works through the cell network. And so at Togety Mountain Lodge, I had a cell signal. And so I was able to join that board call, talk with Cody Lockhart, who ended up being our incident commander, and pull up that map as well. And so I looked at the map, and you talked about the W Trail. And the first coordinate that I looked at was on the W Trail. And so I looked at that. I'm like, I know right where that is.
Yeah.
Like the verbiage that we had, or I guess the language that we had of your location was you were towards the Gros Ventre and you were next to a creek. And I looked at the map and I know where this is. It's easy to get to. It's only maybe 6 or 7 miles away.
So hold on. Didn't we just establish that Jason was about 25 miles from the trailhead? As you're about to hear, something is not quite adding up.
So talked with Cody and said, hey, I've got a friend up here. He's a competent snowmobiler. We're both prepared to go in the backcountry. We've been snowmobiling all day. We'd already been snowmobiling for 8 hours or so that day. And the only thing we really needed was maybe grab some extra gear for you. So grab some socks, grab some extra gloves, some extra layering just in case clothing was wet, and made sure that we had food and water, did a beacon check, make sure our beacons have a signal, already had my inReach. Like basically all I needed to do was throw on a jacket, throw my boots back on and go. I was ready to jump in the shower and crack a beer and okay, we'll just put that on pause for a couple hours. We'll just go out, help Jason, and then come back. And the only thing that we were really lacking, or that we hadn't rehabbed from our snowmobile ride, was fuel. And so we'd ridden, 70, 80 miles that day already. Some of it on trail, some of it in the backcountry. We knew that our sleds were low on fuel. And so we quickly debated, do we want to go fill our snowmobiles and take the 10 minutes to do that? Or because of the time of the day, knowing you were in the creek, knowing you weren't that far away, do we just fill up a little bit of fuel, a little bit of extra, but enough to get there and back, and save a little bit of time and get you to safety sooner? And so that was the discussion we had. That's the decision we made. So we ended up throwing a couple of gallons of fuel in each sled and heading straight to the coordinate that we had. So we got there pretty quickly. I think we were to that coordinate probably within a half hour. We got there before the sunset, which was our goal. And we saw fresh tracks there. We might have even seen your tracks. We probably did, because we were on the W trail.
Yeah.
And got to the coordinate. We're kind of looking around and like, there's nobody here. We don't see tracks in that immediate area. We saw tracks in that drainage, but we didn't see tracks exactly where that coordinate was. We talked about communication a little bit and the lack of a cell network. And luckily in that location, I had a good radio communication with Cody. So we kept in touch with Cody that entire ride down there, and told him where we were at, and got to the coordinate like, hey, there's nobody here. And Cody asked, well, what's your coordinate? And we didn't have cell coverage there, but I could look at my phone, like, here's the little red dot where Jason's supposed to be, and here's where we are right on that red dot. And I read that coordinate off to Cody, and he's like, that's not where he is. And so when I had pulled up the map in the lodge, I looked at it like, I know where that is, put my phone in my pocket. And then as soon as we left the lodge, we lost cell communication, cell signal. So each time that we got to an intersection, I just wanted to make sure we were going the right way. I pulled out my phone. Dot was still in the same spot. We're headed the right direction. What had happened is the person that had made the map, no fault of their own, this is probably what they've done every time, but that dot was probably there for maybe a minute. And so from when I looked at the map, put my phone away, didn't pull it out again until we were out of cell signal, the actual coordinate was plotted in and ended up being 8 miles as the crow flies to the east. And so we ended up in the wrong drainage on the wrong trail, and didn't realize it until we didn't locate you. And then we got the right coordinate, looked at the map. Wow, that's a long ways away. That makes the decision to not completely fill our sleds with fuel made that decision even worse. We're like, well, we can head that direction, see how we do on our fuel levels. But at that point, we were kind of concerned that we wouldn't be able to make it to you without us running out of gas, and without a plan. We didn't want to become more people that needed help at that point.
Yeah, it's interesting when all this is going on, because, there's so many team members involved in this team. Everybody's doing something differently at the time. Doug happens to be up at Togedy. Some people are at work. I was at a gathering of individuals with lots of kids running around and having a blast, and that call came in. I'm Ryan Murtaugh. I live just south of Jackson, and I guide year-round. So summertime, I guide fishing trips in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, and then in the wintertime, I'm out ski guiding primarily in Grand Teton National Park. I've been a member of Teton County Search and Rescue since 2015. I have 2 wonderful kids, Luca Bear, 4-year-old boy, Remy Ram, 2-year-old daughter, and then my lovely wife, Annie. And this will actually be our 10th year anniversary this year. I grew up in northern Michigan. That's where I'm from originally. And I grew up snowmobiling as a wee little laddie in northern Michigan, ditch banging, playing wherever I could on the snowmobiles. And then after moving out here, following the guiding career, I actually snowmobile guided in this area for about a decade. And it's always kind of exciting for me to see a snow. I'm not that I'm excited that somebody needs our help, but we train hard and we like to use our skills. So when you see a sled call come in, you're like, all right, here we go. Instantly, after that call came in, the first thing I did was pull up the map, and I saw that same point that Doug had referenced on the W trail. And then I also saw that Doug was tracking and he was at Togedy. And I was like, well, shoot, like this is, for lack of a better terms, this is kind of a slam dunk rescue. Doug's there. He's going to be there in 20 minutes. This is going to be solved. Like, go back to the dinner party kind of deal. Like, Doug's got this. But that was all based off of that one initial point. Whereas had I seen a different location, patient location up Cottonwood, I would have known it was going to be a more complex rescue, more resources necessary, and basically the snowmobile team would need to be going in there.
And I probably swore, and then plugged in the right location and realized that was a ways away. And then like, well, do we go back and get more fuel at that point, or we just proceed and try to see where things head? And we made the decision to head towards the intersection of the E trail and the K trail, just so we could get closer. And then we were going to reassess from there and see what our next steps were going to be. The closer, and it was a ways to get there. I want to say we probably snowmobiled another 14 miles just to get to that intersection, which took us, probably half hour, 45 minutes to get over there. And we also we thought that Ted and Nate were behind us, which they ultimately were. So we got to that intersection and decided to just wait there and let Ted and Nate catch up to us. So we waited, 20, 30 minutes. We heard them before we saw them, then we could see their headlights, then they got to us. And we chatted with them for a little bit, just kind of explained our fuel situation, asked if they had a siphon or any way to transfer fuel. They didn't. And so we also touched base with our incident commander, said, hey, here's our situation. And decision was made. We were just going to kind of sit put, and Ted and Nate were going to head your direction. They had a few navigational challenges as well, kind of drew things out. And so we waited, I'd say about an hour or so there. Our thought was that if Ted or Nate had issues, that we could then go to get to them. And so after probably that hour or so, I think the team had been paged at that point because we just said, hey, too many things are not going well right now, that we weren't comfortable just as things were. So we needed more resources at that point. So that's ultimately when our second full team page went out.
And then about 3 hours later is when the team page came out again. And it was the same map, same deal. I pull up the map, check it out. Same map, same rescue. And then the point was drastically different. And when I pulled that up, I was like, oh, okay, this just got real. Because at this point, it's almost 9:00 at night. It's 8:15 when that comes out. So we're going to be leaving the hangar at 9, and it's going to be a long night. You just know it going into it. So left the dinner party, kids to be wrangled by other adults, and headed to the hangar. And it was pretty obvious after seeing the new point that it was very obvious that we're going to go up the Gros Ventre at that point, because it's real fast riding up those trails, up those roads, really, until you get to Cottonwood, where Jason was. So you can fly. Normally, you can fly if your sleds don't overheat all the way to where Jason was. But they mentioned earlier that it was a beautiful day, and it happened to be a beautiful night as well. And there wasn't a lot of snow on the surface to help cool our sleds down. And it was relatively warm for winter temperatures out there. So that was the only thing that ended up becoming an issue was snowmobile overheating.
Meanwhile, Doug and his friend had to go all the way back to Togety Mountain Lodge to refuel their sleds. Then they turned around and headed back into the darkness, knowing they needed to cover about 25 miles of variable terrain.
I figured I was going to be into the dark, even if somebody had left, right when they were called. It was a halt to get in there. So I was noticing it getting a little, sun going down, starting to get a little cooler. So I got my clothes back on, but I was in communication with Cody, and one thing that Cody kept telling me is, or he just kept asking me, is he was great. He was just, how are you doing? I felt bad because I couldn't track the satellite. I'd only get 5 to 7 minutes to communicate with somebody, and then it was probably if I was diligent about it, it'd be another 20 minutes before I could get it again. And I kind of gave up on it, to be honest, because I was just hands out, freezing. So eventually just started getting into the mode of, I need to survive right now, because I knew I was getting cold. And when the sun went down, it was pretty sorry guys, it's pretty tough to just sort of see that disappear. And then I think I told you on the phone, so wild. As soon as the sun went down, it started getting dark. 100 yards from me, something's crashing through the trees, and I was like, this is perfect. Right now I gotta figure, I was like, please don't be a bear that's up early looking for something. I didn't think it was a bear, but I was like, a moose isn't much better. So I had my shovel out and I just went to town on this dead tree with my shovel, just making as much sound as I could. And I was yelling and just trying to get whatever it was to go the other way. And it did, fortunately. But I was like, that's the last thing I need, because you can't go anywhere. You can't run. It's 4 or 5 feet deep. So got that over with. And then, Cody kept making sure he didn't want me to leave where I was at. And I didn't want to leave either, but I couldn't stay there because it was cold. As soon as the sun went down, the winds kind of go katabatic, start coming down the drainage, and it just went right through me. So I had a space blanket. I got that wrapped up around me, but I decided what I was going to do is walk down the snow track 50 paces and come back, and then walk up 50 paces and come back. And then I'd go 75. And I started realizing I better start making signs of where I'm at, because there was enough tracks that I figured these guys might not know which ones are mine. Glad you knew which ones, but I don't know if you guys ever saw it. Put a bunch of logs down with made arrows, and
I saw the arrow.
Yeah,
we were getting close, and there was an arrow. It's like, oh,
there it is.
There it is. Sweet.
So that's how I stayed warm, because the second I stopped, I started getting really cold. But after about 2 hours walking back and forth in the dark, fortunately the moon was out. It was pretty nice in that regard. I could at least see. But the other thing was weird is how loud the creek was, because I couldn't hear anything going on until I got away from the creek. So I would walk down, make some arrows, walk back up, make some arrows. And I did that for a long time, and then caught up with Cody when I could. And, it was all of a sudden like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and started realizing I think I'm spending the night. So I stripped down a whole tree, got all my, got some pine boughs and stuff like that, dug a hole. I don't know what I was just trying to keep warm, dug a deep hole, stuck the boughs in there. And I actually crawled in the hole. I was just so cold, put that blanket over me and tried, I was thinking, maybe I can just like catch a nap or something, which was probably not a good idea, but laid down in that hole for about 20 minutes. And then, that same voice was like, you better get out of the hole. You're going to die in there. Got to stay warm. So I popped out of the hole, kept walking.
To get to Jason, Ryan Murtaugh headed up the Grovant Road to the Atherton Gate. His snowmobile team included fellow volunteers Brooke Yeomans, Galen Park, and Philip Fox.
We're the sled team for that. And so kind of the way we divided that up is we wanted to get moving as fast as possible. So we didn't know what state Jason was going to be in at that point. We knew that he was wet, and we knew that he'd been out there for quite some time. So we wanted to have the capability of putting him on a toboggan if we needed to, if he wasn't able to sit on a sled and ride out on his own. We just, a lot of unknowns there because it's been so long. So myself and Philip, we unloaded sleds real fast and just took off. And then team 2 is Brooke and Galen, and they were going to take the toboggan. We were assuming the toboggan was going to take longer to get in there, just because once you get off the main trail, there's kind of some single track style riding to get in there. So we just wanted to get contact with Jason as quickly as possible. So we took off up the Grovant, and yeah, smooth sailing, beautiful night, great night to have a rescue, great night to be out there if you weren't wet. Yeah, we picked our way up Cottonwood, but our biggest issue was sleds shutting down on us. And so once we got to Cottonwood, probably like every 5 minutes, we'd have to stop and wait and throw snow up into the tunnels and like let the sleds cool down. We were trying to ditch the sleds off into any snow available to get kicked up into those tunnels, but it was just really hard with the terrain that we were in to be able to cool the sleds down. But we slowly inched our way up there with these overheating sleds. And, you could tell where Jason had gone. Like you mentioned before, you kind of jumped that one creek, and I rode right up to that and was about to jump it. And then I was like, well, there's no way we're going to get back that way. And it was almost a stopping point at that point because it's dark. You can't see into the timber. You can't tell if there's going to be another route to get around. But luckily we were able to like kind of pick our way up that drainage to another location across the creek that we could backtrack later. It got to the point after, the sled overheated for the 10th time. I was standing there just hanging out, whistling, and I heard some snowmobiles up drainage, and they sounded like turbos. And they did. They were. And so at that point, when I heard the snowmobiles up drain, I was like, okay, we're close.
I just started yelling, hey, I'm down here. And they didn't hear me for a minute. And then in another cycle, when they got stuck and I yelled, somebody yelled back, Jason. And, that was good. That was a good moment. So Ted and Nate came down, saw their headlights. That was awesome. I think Doug, you and Eric were right behind him, not too far. And then Ryan and his crew, within 10, 15 minutes, everybody kind of converged in this random spot up Cottonwood Creek to help me out. It was one of the sweetest things that's happened to me in my life.
But not long after we rolled up there, and first thing I saw is your snowmobile in the creek, because I think you were up drainage a little bit with Ted and Nate, just 50 yards or so. First roll in, and first impression was like, oh dang, that thing's in there. Not fully underwater, but like a good portion of it was underwater and then sucked under that snow bridge like Jason was mentioning earlier. And then, after looking at it, I looked up and you guys were making your way to me, and you were walking just fine and talking. And that was a great sight to see, because we weren't sure what state we were going to find you in, and it was really nice to see you up on your feet and talking, and big old smile, and like happy to see us there, and we're happy to see you there. Well, the initial thought when I got there and I saw Jason and his two buddies, and it was just me at that point because the other 3 sleds with my group were still waiting for their sleds to cool down. My initial plan was like, that sled's stuck, that sled's staying there, we're getting out. It looked pretty hard to get out of that creek. But then everybody showed up, and there was 9 of us standing there, 9 adults standing around a single snowmobile in a creek. And that's when the discussion was made, like, hey, we can just literally lift this thing up together cumulatively and get it out of the creek, and at least set them up for success later. Didn't, personally, and I know, Jason, you were holding back and not saying that you just wanted to get out there. I also just wanted to get you out of there.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of dilly-dallying that happened. It kind of got that sled neck mentality, like standing around trying to fix a snowmobile, which is great when it's sunny and warm outside. But this is midnight and you've been out there all day and you're cold and wet. But we achieved getting the snowmobile out. It took putting some well-placed straps and, a little bit of leverage, but it was pretty quick to get that out with nine of us there. We got it out, and then there was talk about trying to get the thing started, and I was going to let that go for like maybe 5 minutes or so before just being like, we aren't doing this right now. We need to leave. And I'm sure you were thinking that too. Looking at the clock, we got 2 hours to go. It's going to be 2 a.m. by the time we get out of here, as long as nothing goes wrong on the way out. Still, like you said, 25 miles or so to cover to get to the trailhead.
Yeah.
With knowing that our sleds are low on fuel and overheating, that kind of stuff. But it was cool. Everybody got together, ripped that thing out, did some layer changes. And at that point, we had a couple sleds still on the other side of the creek that needed to come across the creek crossing that had collapsed.
I think the plan at that point was I was going to be the little spoon with whoever was willing to take me. I think I ended up with you first, Doug. And I'm 220, probably with my gear on, I'm probably 230. I'm 6'2". I'm not a little spoon for anybody. And I'm a pain in the rear end on your sled because I'm just dead weight. Doug's been riding all day and all night, and then he gets stuck with me. And I felt bad because it wasn't simple riding out of there. It wasn't hard, but it wasn't simple either.
The biggest challenge, I think there might have been one time I had you hop off the sled because there was something that either was soft or there was another creek crossing we didn't want to end up. And it wasn't the hardest riding I've ever done double, but it was not the easiest thing to do. But ultimately, the biggest issue ended up being overheating again. And you and I rode together for a couple of miles until the sled I was on overheated. And they're like, hey, you've got to go hop onto somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, I need to cool this sled down because I don't want to.
What size of spoon are you, Doug?
Maybe an XL spoon.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'6". I don't remember what my arm span is, but as the tall guy, I think I end up in this role of riding double with people more often than maybe others do.
You're really good at it.
We had talked about it, I'd say, for 5 minutes. Like, it was not a very long conversation. But with the fatigue that everyone had, how late it was, we just felt it was going to be safer for us as a group to stay together. Another factor was fuel, which is a theme kind of throughout this whole rescue, is there was some concern about other sleds running out of fuel. Our sleds had the most fuel in them because we'd ridden the least mileage. And also when I was back up at Togedy getting fuel, I ended up picking up my siphon. I've got a siphon that I will carry at times. And I didn't have it with me earlier in the day, but we just decided, we'd heard people were low on fuel. That's the easiest way to transfer fuel. I also carry a stainless pint glass. I didn't have it with me that day, but that can be used for transferring oil, transferring fuel, melting water. So it's a multi-purpose tool. But anyway, I had the siphon, grabbed that, and brought that with us, and just decided that let's just go out as a group. If there's any other issues, we've got a larger group. And the riding wasn't super challenging going back. That trouble spot, we could just go downhill. It wasn't a climb that we had to make, but there were a ton of creek crossings, and like, let's just make it easy, make it simple. Stay as a group. Something happened, we had more resources.
And Jason, how are you feeling? Like, what's your are you injured? Anything going on that was making you concerned at all?
I didn't realize how beat up I was that night. The next, or I guess a few hours later, after Sunday morning or whatever it was, in the shower, it looked like I'd been in a cage fight. And I don't know if it was from breaking down logs or something. I do think initial impact when I went down, I must have hit the handlebars or something, because it looked like somebody hit me across the chest with a 2x4. So I was pretty bruised up the next day. But I think the adrenaline kicked in when everybody showed up, and I realized I'm about to get out of here. That I was doing pretty good. About halfway down, we kept stopping for overheating sleds. And so I just kind of walk on the trail a little bit. And I don't know if you guys know this, but like, I was totally blitzed. I mean, I was hypothermic. And there was a couple times I turned around and nobody was there. And I realized I wasn't even facing up the trail. I was looking the wrong direction. And so somebody would eventually say, Jason, get on the sled. I don't even know who I rode back with. I knew I was with Doug. Mm-hmm. I know, Ryan, you're the one who got me to the very end, because that's when I was in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious that you just needed to get out.
Yeah. And so I kind of lost the feeling in my right foot a couple hours before you guys showed up. And so I still got a little tingling there. I'm sure it'll come back eventually. But yeah, I was happy face and, trying to just keep everybody moving. What I didn't want to have is a stopping for much longer than we needed to. So I just kind of kept it together. But that last moment when you threw me on the sled, I was in bad condition.
Yeah, we were coming around really close to that Red Rock Ranch there, just above it. And I was out front, and I was just ripping, and I looked behind me and there was nobody. And so I turned around, came back up, and we were at that point, we had an overheated turbo or out of gas, or one of the many issues was going on with the sleds. And then, saw you up there, and it was pretty obvious that, like, okay, you don't need to be waiting for people to, like, let their sleds cool down or get fuel. We'll just put you on my sled, and we'll just get out of here. And so that's kind of what we did. And, we made it from there out without having any heating issues, and got you to Atherton.
Yeah. Cody was there waiting for us, and Cody did the right. He was like, get out of here, get in your car, and I didn't want to go. I want to make sure everybody was okay after they spent their time and energy and risked themselves to come get me. So I wanted to, like, knuckles to each person. Cody let me do that, but then as soon as that was, and I started helping people load their sledges, because that's who I met. He's like, get out of here. My wife was like, get in the car. Idiot. What time was it? Like 3:40 in the morning or something. Mm-hmm. But when I got in the car, that's when it hit me full that I was hypothermic. I was in trouble. I'd starve, and I was pretty dehydrated, and it was time to go home.
One thing that really comes to mind for me is just through this conversation, like tonight, with Jason talking about how he was feeling when we showed up, and like my initial gut reaction showing up to the scene as well, is that it's really important to be honest with how you're feeling. And it's hard to do that sometimes, but we would have been out probably 30 to 45 minutes earlier had I known how you were truly feeling. My initial gut was like, leave the snowmobile in the creek and let's get out of here, because like that's gear. We don't care about gear. We care about you. But then, like, you did a really good job of like being really cheerful when everybody got there, and you seemed really good. And so we took the time to get the sled out, and we took the time to like fiddle with the snowmobile, which we shouldn't have done in hindsight. But like, I guess just a takeaway point for maybe for us as SAR members too, is like, just go with what is right, and like, try not to please everybody. I was trying to keep Jason happy by letting him try and get the snowmobile going, but he was also trying to keep everybody happy. And at one point you just got to do what's right. And like, it's the middle of winter, middle of the night. We just need to leave.
There's certainly mistakes I felt that I made. First one being fuel. Like, I should have just fueled sleds because we could have gotten there much, much sooner. And also helped, Nate and Ted not go the wrong direction. That's what delayed their arrival, because we would have helped prevent that from happening as well. But things that I was thinking of, like, you said you put your sandwich in the top of your in your glove box. In the past, I've at times put a phone in there or put my inReach in there, and I'm just thinking, like, that's my communication tool. And if that had been in there, like, that would have been much different. And so that's for non-essential stuff like that. I already had made the decision not to put those items in there, but those are things that I carry on my person. Always carry extra gloves, always carry extra layers, but now I'm kind of like, I want to carry more of that stuff. And now I need a bigger tunnel bag.
My question for you, Jason, is just like, if you feel comfortable talking about the reluctance to call search and rescue, when you're like trying to deal and all of that.
At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, things look different than, midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. And so in my head, I think where I was at was, if I can get just a couple other bodies, we can get the sled out of here and I can get out of here, and once we showed up, it was kind of that simple. Right. So it's not a reluctance of going like, oh, I can't stand search and rescue. It's nothing like that at all. It's Ryan being out with his friends and his family, and my stupidity means he's got to leave that and come out and get it. It's that reluctance, I think it is. But I also, there's a couple bad decisions, a lot of bad decisions on my part. The sun's still up. I've got Nate and Ted on their way. Is that going to be enough? That's in my head. That's probably enough. But that got delayed and things happen. And by the time it gets to that second call out that you guys sent out, then it's like, okay, this is past where this is really easy. So it was reluctance, not because of anything against like calling search and rescue. It's just that we didn't know. I don't think any of us knew how long this was going to take and how complex it was going to end up being when it was supposed to be something pretty simple.
And I think that's on our end as well. Like, that's why we initially thought, hey, 4 people on 4 sleds all starting roughly from the same area should be enough. And we thought we had enough resources. Ultimately, we didn't.
And I would just say, just to comment on like your feelings about taking us away from whatever we're doing, we like to do what we do, and we are ready to go do whatever we have to do. And I know it's a concern, and it's just something you can't get rid of, but it's something that hopefully for anybody listening to this, like, we would rather have you call us and not need us and like figured it out on your own, and then call us again and be like, hey, actually I'm good. Like, you can go back to whatever you're doing. It's great.
Yeah. Because
at least we know you're good, and then if you do end up needing us, we're still coming, at that point, and we've mobilized early. So that, call us as soon as you think you need us deal is like, that's legit. Like, it doesn't matter what we're doing. Like, we all signed up for this job for that reason, to be available for you.
For sure. Yeah.
And I think that would just be the biggest message for other people listening to this, is just know, like, we are happy to go, and we're happy to help. Don't feel guilty about pulling us out.
And I'm glad you said that, because through this experience, my mindset has changed about that. Now, I'm not saying like everybody go out and do something stupid so you can call search and rescue. That's not what this is about. But, there was hesitancy on my part just because I knew other things were happening. But when I heard my friends were coming out and what they were going to have to go through, I started getting worried too. It's like, well, what if there's all of a sudden 3 people that need to get rescued? And again, I didn't ever pull the trigger, if you will, officially and say, hey, my wife, Laura, and Hannah, call search and rescue, because I was stuck in this canyon getting 7 minutes of, communication time. And I think it was during one of those gaps where they're just like, we're not messing with this anymore. And my daughter, Hannah, called 911. And I think that's why it was finally done. And so I didn't have to make the decision, right?
Yeah,
it kind of got made for me.
We're glad she called.
Same. Very, very glad.
So, Jason, I am wondering if this experience has influenced you in any way in your, in how you approach these solo missions and adventures, and kind of moving forward. Where are you at with this?
Good question. When I got in the truck, or when I got in the my wife's car, her 4Runner, she's gonna laugh that I shared this, but it might have been the next day. I'm a little blurry, but at some point she looked me in the face and she said, "We're done with that." And oh man, I want to respect that. I really do. But Laura, I got to be honest with you. I'm wrestling with that one. I think what I want to agree with her on is we're done with that sort of poor decision making, because it's hard when I'll say I got away with it, but I'm also going to say it's hard when for let's say 15 years, I've been able to do it successfully, safely, come home, had a good day, helped some other people out, that, and then to have one time where it goes south to say, okay, well, categorically you're done. I mean, if you wipe out skiing, you don't sell your skis. If you wipe out your motorcycle, we make mistakes. If we learn from them, then I think we're smarter people and can do that. I've had a ton of friends reach out to me. It's like, why are you going by yourself? Let me go with you. So now everybody wants to go for a ride. So I don't think I'll have a problem with that. But yeah, things are different in my head for sure. Because I as much as I appreciate that you guys like doing this, you've signed up to do this. I'm going to speak on behalf of the general public. We don't want you to have to do it on our part. There is a stigma with it, right? Because I've been, people are going to say, oh, you got bagged and tagged by search and rescue, and kind of poke you a little bit about it, which is fine. But the truth of the matter is, Jen Sparks, she's I know Jen, she texted me the next day and she said, I heard about what was going on. I was right there, pulling for you. And Casey Best sent me a text too. But Jen said something. She's like, we're just here helping good people when they need help. And that's what it really is. That's what it comes down to. I don't think it's a shame or anything like that. We all make mistakes, and it's a really tricky environment out there, and we do crazy stuff. Be safe, but if you get in trouble, there's a whole bunch of people that are just excited to go out and jump on their sled and come find you.
Jason, when you're snowmobiling by and you see a dude in a pink snowmobile suit stuck in the ditch, you can come on down and help me out.
Happy to do so. Happy to do so.
That was Jason Dunlop speaking to Teton County Search and Rescue volunteers Ryan Murtaugh and Doug Van Houten. If you'd like to find out more information about what you've just heard on this podcast, whether it's satellite texting or backcountry safety resources, to just learning more about the volunteers and how you can support them, please come see us at TetonCountySAR.org and the Fine Line podcast page at backcountryzero.com. That's it for Season 9. A sincere thank you to all of our guests who came onto this show to share their personal experiences so that the rest of us can learn. A personal ask is that if you like this podcast, please leave us a review wherever you listen and share it with a friend. Thank you to our Season 9 sponsors, Arc'teryx and Roadhouse Brewing Company. This interview was recorded in the studios of KHOL 89.1 FM in Jackson. Our editing and sound are by Melinda Binks. The theme song is by Anne and Pete Sibley, with additional music produced by Ben Winship. The original cover art is by Jen Reddy, and my name is Matt Hansen. Be safe out there, everyone. We will see you in the mountains.